and welcome to episode 77 of the Tea and Possibilities podcast. I'm Nikki and this is a podcast all about knitting, crochet and making all the things here in Northwest London. You can find me on Instagram at hippie_Nikki. I'm NikkiHippy on Ravelry, and if you search for Tea and Possibilities under the groups tab, you will find our group right there. I will be talking a little bit more about accessibility for Ravelry very soon, but I just wanted to flag that if you are still able to access Ravelry and you are still continuing to use it, there is a group there for you. I will link to that and everything else that I mentioned in this episode just down below. As always, I want to say welcome to any new viewers. Thank you so much for giving the podcast a shot. I really do appreciate it. And to my returning viewers, thank you once again for coming back for another episode. You guys are the best. Today's tea is a bit of a special one because I decided to treat myself to some more Fortnum & Mason Royal Blend. I got this last year. I can't even remember what season it was. I feel like I had a coat on. What is time anymore? And I absolutely fell in love with it, and I've had a kind of couple of weeks because despite lockdown lifting, various things, it's a difficult time for everyone, so I decided to cheer myself up with tea because this is what I do. And what I'm looking at right now is the first of a 3-month bouquet subscription. It's not much of a bouquet anymore because I've had it about 2 weeks, but there are 1, 2, 3, there's about 7 or 8 carnations, bright pink carnations that are still in good nick. So I'm, holding on to the bitter end. But yeah, that's just a couple of bright spots in my life. And so today's tea is Fortnum & Mason Royal Blend, which I'm going to take a sip of right now. So for those of you who don't know, this is, hang on, let me find the info. It's a classic Fortnum's blend. Ceylon teas lend an uplifting note to the Maltia Assam to make a very traditional cup of tea. And it is very traditional tasting. And it is lovely. Apparently it was first blended for King Edward VII in the summer of 1902. And it has been popular ever since for its smooth and honey-like flavour. So there you go. Royalty. Yeah, royalty. I think I might have made that pun last time I drank it on the podcast. So I'm nothing if not reliable. Predictable? One of the two. Now, before we jump into the podcast proper, I would like to have a quick chat about Ravelry. Again, it's one of those things that I think shouldn't be pushed towards the end of the podcast. It should be talked about up front. Now, for those of you who maybe don't use Ravelry very often, but Ravelry has updated the site and it looks significantly different to how it did before. And that is causing a lot of problems. So I will share my experience. For those of you who don't know, I do get quite severe migraines because I have some issues with the back of my eyes. It's why I wear glasses. It's why I can't have laser eye surgery, although I would love some. So that is why I get migraines. Now, I logged on to Ravelry, as I do several times a week, to check my messages, to update my projects, to check in on the Summer of Socks chatter thread, and there was new Rav. And it was very, very white, and there was a lot of white space, and I felt like the icons were very tiny, and I found myself, even with my glasses on, and they are fairly new glasses, I should hasten to add, but I found myself kind of looking at the screen kind of like this, like trying to focus, and I began to get the kind of telltale little pain behind my eye, which is usually a sign of a migraine coming. So I shut it down. It made my eyes just ache, so I shut it down, took a painkiller. I was fine because despite the fact that I do get migraines and I do have this problem with the back of my eyes, my problem is not a hugely significant one, and so I was able to kind of slam the computer shut, take a painkiller, have lots of water. I had a little nap and I was fine. I avoided having a migraine. But I will say that I clocked that it was because of this, the layout and the look and the new Ravelry. So I kind of avoided it for a couple of days. And when I heard that we could toggle back to classic Ravelry, I decided to go ahead and do that. Again, I want to own my privilege here because I was able, despite the slight discomfort that I had, I was still able to get in, get to my profile, go down to classic Rav, click on it and change it in a matter of seconds. But there are people whose reaction to the new Ravelry is so severe, they can't even do that. They're having to get friends or housemates or spouses to do it for them. And if that is not a problem, I don't know what is. That to me is wild. Like, if somebody cannot use your site for the 10 seconds it takes them to, you know, change back to the old skin, that is a severe problem. And I have always really enjoyed Ravelry. As a highly organised person, I love having somewhere to put my stash. I love having somewhere to put my projects and my library. I love all of that. And I've always found Ravelry to be fairly responsive. That has been my experience. And I completely understand that this was a lot of work for them, and it must be very disheartening and disappointing to discover that so many people dislike the design or are angry about the design or straight up can't use it because of the design. However, I do think that their response, which has been fairly minimal at this point, is not good enough. I really would love to see them own the issue and apologise and work to correct it. Because, you know, this is a hub for us knitters. There's nowhere else really that we spend time. If there is, I haven't found it. I would love to know down below. All of this to say, I just wanted to flag that I know this is an issue. Firstly, if you are able to, please go in and toggle back to Classic Rav. I believe that the numbers at the moment show that the majority of people on the website are using new Ravelry. So if more people can toggle back to Classic Ravelry, that skews the numbers in our favour. Again, I don't really know how this works because I don't know if they're checking the accounts, like dead accounts, but side note, if you can toggle back, that would be great. Thank you. Secondly, I am going to do my level best to find everything that I mentioned in this episode and share a non-Ravelry link. So I will share Ravelry links because I know that there are some people for whom that is easiest and they would prefer that link, and that's fine. But I will also try and find patterns and yarns and things like that on non-Ravelry sites. And I will make that really, really clear down below so that you can choose where you want to put your click. This way, if you have been avoiding Ravelry because you haven't been able to toggle it back, or you just don't really want to use it at the moment, which I entirely understand, you do have the option. So I hope that's useful. And of course, if you do know of any other like online communities comparable to Ravelry, I would love to hear about them, because obviously going forward, I want to provide other options for people if this continues to be an issue. And I would just like to be more aware of what's out there. I've kind of, I think, done what a lot of us do, which is discovered Ravelry and stayed there. So if there are any other places to hang out, please do let me know. But now let's move on to Whipped Up. There are a lot of people outside shouting. I don't know if you can hear. I never know what the mic picks up. Sometimes I'm like, that's really distant, and then I'm editing and I'm like, that's really not distant. And then things that are super loud, I don't hear. So there we go. I am going to be really honest and say it's, as I said at the top, it's been a kind of a meh couple of weeks for a multitude of reasons. So I haven't got a lot of knitting done. I found that the summer of Socks Cow kind of exploded my whips. I mean, let's face it, I'm probably somebody with quite a low number of whips to begin with, but you know, for me, I suddenly have a lot of whips. If you recall, I got myself down to just my crochet blanket and my Kerry Town pullover. We're still not talking about that. Just shh. Best not to talk about it. And now I have both of those projects, but I also have 2 sock projects on the go. Well, that's not entirely true because one of them's a faux. Anyway, my point being that I did get a little bit anxious about the fact that I had several projects, you know, in the whip status, and I wasn't feeling ready again for that level of commitment. I wanted to go back to kind of monogamy and just work on one thing at a time. My brain hasn't switched back to its old way of, you know, flippity-gibbeting about over several projects. So I was very focused on a couple of projects, which is why we have a faux. I'm sure you're very shocked about what the faux is. So these are my Zoom knitting socks, and these are knit out of West Yorkshire Spinners signature 4-ply in the Kingfisher colourway with turmeric for the contrast cuffs, heels and toes. I had to really think about that for a minute there. I was like, is it a cuff? What is it? So yeah, those are finished. They're from my usual cuff down vanilla sock recipe, which I figured out via videos from Meanwhile at the Castle. And yeah, they are all done. These were pretty much monogamously knit for a little while till they got finished. If you remember, I had maybe this much of the second sock last week, and then I just worked through the rest of the sock. So yeah, all done, all blocked. I wove in the ends and blocked the second one last night because I hadn't got round to it yet. And I don't know if you can tell, but it is it's a bit grim out today, and it's July. Is it the 4th? It's the 4th of July, and it is grey. It's probably going to rain if it hasn't already. So yeah, July in England. It's a good job I've got socks, really, isn't it? The only vaguely interesting thing that happened with these socks, apart from the fact that I finished them, of course, which is in itself a fabulous moment to share with you all. I was watching The Kid Who Would Be King. Now, you all know how much I love King Arthur, and I hadn't seen this before. I thought when I saw the posters it looked a bit silly and that I wouldn't like it, but a friend of mine saw the beginning of it and was like, you're gonna love it, like, watch it. So I did. And I finished the toe, I started Kitchenering it, and I'm gonna set the scene for you because I've got this like cutesy little like hygge lighting going on. I've got like my candles down here, as you can see. This is actually further back for me than it looks on the camera, so please don't worry that I'm going to set myself, my plants, my knitting or anything on fire. And then by my bed I've got my little daylight alarm clock thingage that is also a bedside lamp, and it's all just very cozy and not exactly, you know, light to see by. So I Kitchener it, and I make an absolute pig's ear out of it because I don't know how I did this, but I somehow managed to get like a fat seam on the top. Like, it wasn't at all a Kitchener stitch. God knows what I was doing. Perhaps I was doing it backwards. I wouldn't be surprised because I was just sat crying at this film. So there you go. Also don't know why I was crying, but I was very moved by it all. So I unpicked it because, again, why wait for daylight when you can unpick by the light of a blooming candle? And I was about to do it again because I thought I just want it finished. And then sensible Nikki descended from somewhere. She doesn't usually stay up as late as silly Nikki, but she perked up and said, just leave it. Just leave it and do it tomorrow, which is what I did. And I pulled up the Pearl Soho video and I followed it, and it was correct, and I made it into a sow's ear. No, I called it a pig's ear. What's the phrase? A silk purse, or a sock, if you will. It's been a really long week, can you tell? So there it is. I managed to rescue it from the jaws of its fat little toe seam. Next up is the only other thing that I've been working on, and I'm sure that you will recognise it. This is the Eltonin sock by Kalisha Ryan, and it's knit out of 3rd Volt Yarns Binti and Stranded Dye Works First Frost for the contrast. I can't remember how much I'd had done of this. I think this was it, to be honest. I think I'd finished the leg last episode. I haven't really, I think I did one more round on it, so I had it set up ready to go for the heel. But every time I sit down to do the heel, I just kind of think, I can't do it. Do you ever get those times where you just look at something and you go, I know you're going to be really easy when I actually sit down to do it, but I just can't do it. So you reach for your Zoom sock, which you can just go round and round and round and round with and not have to think about. But I do have some brain space today. So the plan is, when I have got this all edited and ready to go up, I will sit down and put the heel in this because I miss this. West Yorkshire Spinners is beautiful yarn, and it knits up beautifully, but it is a little bit toothy, and I'm whenever I touch this, it's so smooth and lovely, and I love the pattern. It didn't pick up particularly well last time, but that's the back, so maybe the comparison will help. And it's super smooth and delicious, and I just love this like spiral striping. And then we've got this just, oh, I just love this texture. It's really, really satisfying, and it looks it will look beautiful on, and I can't wait to finish the whole sock and put it on my foot and wear it. So yeah, I'm excited to have this finished because I really want to see what it looks like, the whole thing. And it'd be my first pattern sock, so I think it is something I really need to get on with. But that is it. That is literally it for 2 weeks worth of Whipped Up. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that's having kind of some struggles with where to put their brain. I'm finding kind of lockdown loosening to be almost more anxiety inducing than lockdown itself. I popped out today to pick up some local honey from the park shop, and I was the only person there in a mask. So yeah, I think my brain is taken up with kind of that worry a lot more perhaps than it was before. I think I'd potentially gotten used to lockdown a little bit. So I found it really difficult to kind of have the mojo to do things, which is a real shame because obviously when I knit, I feel a lot calmer, I feel a lot better. I do really need to focus on my Elton sock so I can get it finished. And I did consider casting on another Zoom sock, but I know that that's the one I will just reach for because I don't have to think. And I really want to finish my pattern socks because they're so cute and I want to pose in them. So yes, I will get those finished, and I think when I need something brainless to work on, I have my cozy striped blanket looking at me right there because my armchair is behind the camera. But again, I think blankets are just the kind of project that you pick up and put down. We all know that. So yeah, how have you all been doing with your knitting? Have you found that your mojo kind of comes and goes? I have, and it's really sad. I'm hoping it's going to come back because I do have the puppy blanket to make. So yeah, maybe when I get the heel in my Elton socks and I'm on the foot and it's kind of back to not brainless knitting, because you do have to kind of figure out which row you're on, but when it's kind of more brainless than it would be when you're putting a heel in, perhaps I will cast on my puppy blanket. Although step one would be finding a pattern. A few of you sent me patterns which I looked up and then bookmarked. The idea being that I would have a look and kind of make a decision later on, and I just haven't got around to doing that. So yeah. But while we're on the subject of socks, I would like to remind you about the Summer of Socks cal, which I'm struggling to say because I keep saying sock cals. Summer of Socks cal. We are now in our second month. It is now July. You have this month and all of August, and you can cast on with Wild Abandon. You do not have to finish. It doesn't have to be knitting. It can be crochet as well. I don't know how else you'd make a sock, but I'm sure that would be fine too. And there are a couple of things I wanted to tell you about the Summer of Socks cal, a couple of updates. The first is that we have a new prize. So Vintage Cyanide Designs contacted me and has offered 3, which is incredibly generous, of their mixtape sock club. I never know whether to say sock or socks. Mixtape sock club for this year. They have got 3 of those to give away. And the other thing I wanted to mention is kind of in reference to what I said at the beginning about the issues with Ravelry. I am aware that probably there are people who want to be involved in the Summer of Socks cal and feel like they can't because they can't use Ravelry at the moment. And I want this cal to be as accessible as possible for everyone. So I have decided that I will pull half of the prizes from the chatter thread in Ravelry, purely because I do know that people are continuing to use Ravelry. For a lot of people, that is the only social platform they have available to them. So I'm going to pull prizes from there, and I'm also going to pull prizes from the Instagram hashtag SOS KAL 2020. This way, if you do want to be involved, but you really can't use Ravelry at the moment, you can use the hashtag and still be in for a chance to win a pattern. If you are one of my donors, I am going to be in touch this weekend at some point, just to see if there are other ways to access your patterns, should the winner want to do so via a different platform other than Ravelry. I know that a lot of people also have their patterns on Love Knitting, or Love Crafts as it's now known. I think some people have gone over to Etsy as well. So where possible, I'm going to do everything I can to ensure that you can still be a part of this KAL and you can still access your prize if you win one. And again, as I said at the top, if you know of any ways I can support you in making it more accessible, please let me know and I will do everything I can with that. But now let's move on to knit and natter. So today's knit and natter is a little bit of a philosophical one. And you know how I love a little bit of philosophy and going off on a tangent. So here we go. Over the last couple of weeks, I have been spending a lot of time online reading, rather than knitting, clearly. And I've come across a couple of things that I found really interesting. And the first was a thread on Tumblr, which I don't think I bookmarked, but I definitely shared on Instagram. If I have bookmarked it, I will share it below. And they kind of broke down how this would be an amazing opportunity for Slytherins to kind of be awakened to potentially the propaganda fed to them by their families about blood purity, and it would kind of bring the school together more. I'm probably not explaining this, I'm definitely not explaining this as well as in the thread, but it was absolutely beautiful. I have long had issues with the way the story was tied up at the end. I remember on first reading The Deathly Hallows that I was incredibly disappointed to see that not one Slytherin stayed behind for the Battle of Hogwarts. I found that incredibly hard to believe. And yeah, in my head, just because, you know, they say none stayed back, I don't believe that. I just think there's so many people in one house, you're telling me not one stayed? And for me, it was really sad to see that Snape got a redemptive arc and Draco Malfoy didn't really, and Slytherin House didn't. And you know, if you follow me on Instagram, you will know I'm not a Snape fan. I think he is. I'm a fan in the sense that he's an incredibly compelling character, and it's a fascinating and interesting to talk about his motives. But I don't think that just loving Harry's mum is enough of an excuse for his behaviour. He loved his mum, great, and you know, he put himself on the line and he was an incredibly brave double agent, all fine. The man bullied children. This is a man in his 30s who was bullying an 11-year-old who he knew to be an orphan. And I'm talking there about Harry and Neville, and God knows how many other children that Snape put the fear of God into. So I was very disappointed to see that he had this redemptive moment, and I should say redemptive because to me, in my eyes, it doesn't redeem him. It explains his actions. I do not think it redeems him. And you know, you didn't get that with Slytherin. And I thought how beautiful and more powerful the ending of the book could have been if we saw over the course of books 4 to 7, Slytherin House becoming more a part of Hogwarts and seeing the 4 houses come together as a community, one community, not 4 little communities, and understanding that there are things that transcend, you know, our gangs, our little groupings that we have. Like, there are things that are bigger and more important than that. And I think it just kind of sparked this idea in my head, and it reminded me that I'd always been really disappointed about the way Slytherin House was treated at the end. So yeah, I just thought that was really interesting, and if I can link to it, I will do so below because it's a fascinating read, and I'm probably just incredibly hormonal, but it made me cry. And the other thing that I discovered this week that I will link below and share with you because it's a wonderful YouTube page. It's 2 young guys who are recording their first reactions to like classic songs. So this popped up on my kind of suggested videos feed, and it was these 2 guys listening to Dolly Parton Jolene for the first time. And you know, they've clearly got, you know, whatever their favourite genre of music is, and they clearly only listen to like new stuff as it's coming out. So they're not familiar with Dolly Parton, Queen, Johnny Cash, ABBA. So they're listening to songs that I've grown up with and songs that I adore. I don't know if I've talked about it on the podcast, but Queen is easily probably my favourite band of all time. So to kind of, I watched about maybe 6 videos, just this guy hearing like Don't Stop Me Now, Freddie Mercury playing it live for the first time, and he's like in tears because it's just so amazing. And I just thought, oh, it just gave me such joy, because, you know, they're listening to Dancing Queen and they're there going like, oh, I love that, with the little like violin and the voices, and they're just enjoying it. And I remember, you know, when I was in my, I don't know how old these guys are. Oh God, I'm really old now. But when I was in my teens, music was quite like a tribal thing. You were like either into like garage or pop or like metal and like that kind of stuff. And it meant that kind of defined how you dressed and who your friends were. And it was like, oh, I don't like your music, I don't like your music. And yeah, even though, I mean, I even then was like super into loads of different music. So I was into like lots of like indie rock, like 80s stuff, 90s stuff. And I found that really weird that you couldn't just like everything. But I kept my mouth shut because you just didn't say those things. So it just felt really lovely to discover this channel, which is called Twins the New Trend, by the way. I should have mentioned that up front, but I will link to it down below, where they're just listening and they don't care about, oh, this isn't the genre that I usually listen to, this isn't the genre that I like. They're just listening to it and they're like, oh yeah, love it. And I just thought, oh, and these two things, which probably sound very, very different to you, just kind of got me thinking, because as we come out of lockdown, as we continue to push the Black Lives Matter movement, now is such a time for community. And that's kind of what I was talking about, what I wish I had seen in Harry Potter. And as I get older, the love and nostalgia I have for Harry Potter remains. My issues also with the author continue to grow. But I see a lot more clearly the issues within that story and ways it could have been stronger and had a more powerful message. And then I see these young guys not doing what I did and what my peers did when we were in our teens and early 20s, and defining ourselves by a very narrow thing, but just going, I love that, that's amazing, this is why this is cool, oh, that's amazing, that's cool. And I just thought, it just gave me hope. It just gave me hope, because if we can just be out there as a community and just care about each other, and even if it's not our thing, you know, we can listen to it and go, you know what, it's not for me, but I like that little bit of violin there, and I like the voice there. And the reason it gave me so much hope is because, as I said, we as a community need to be caring about each other when it comes to this pandemic, because this pandemic is not over. You know, the lockdown is easing, but we still need to take precautions. We still need to be as careful as we possibly can, because not just for our own health, but for the health of the people around us, whether that be our friends, family, or perfect strangers. And for the Black Lives Matter movement, we need to continue being together as a community, supporting each other, holding each other up, holding each other accountable, and pushing forward. So these two things over the last couple of weeks just highlighted to me, one, the way in which community could have been a really powerful message in something that has a lot of cultural clout, and the way in which younger people are already doing this, you know, and we could learn a lot from them. So there we go. As I said, lots of tangents. I hope that made sense at the end there. And I hope you're well, and I hope you're keeping safe. And if you are staying inside, and, you know, continuing to shield despite lockdown easing, I hope you're okay. And as always, a massive, massive thank you to the people who continue to care for us, whether it be making sure there is food on the shelves, that our family are cared for in care homes, that are, you know, keeping hospitals running, being on the front line. thank you. And to everyone who is continuing to take precautions despite lockdown easing, thank you, because that is how we're going to beat this. I will see you very soon for another cup of tea. Take care. Bye. And welcome to episode 2020. What? That was like 2017.